It's now 24 minutes after 8. You're watching Morning Express on this 17th day of June. Glad that you could be with us this morning. And now it's time for lifestyle. And one thing that we must admit is that the role of men seems to have changed over time. Traditionally, the man was the hunter. He would go out, get the, spoil for the day, bring it, and the woman would cook. But that seems to have changed over time. And just a quick reminder that this Sunday is Father's Day. And of course, we are encouraging you to celebrate your father. But joining me this morning to talk about the role of the father and the man in society today is a panel that is made up of men. In fact, I was saying before we came on that this should have just been called Men Talk, as we don't have a lady in the panel. But anyway, let me start by first of all introducing the panel. And we have Chris Hart, who's a relationship expert. Thank you for coming. We have Pastor Simon Bevy, who is the Executive Director of Transform Nations. Welcome, Pastor. Thank you. We also have Ken Oko, who's a sociologist.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning to you. And let me start with you, Ken, since you're closest to me and you are the last one to arrive. Just letting everybody know.
Oh, shut up.
But you'll be the first one to take the heat. But now, has the role of the man changed in society over time?
The man's role has not really changed. It's just that the women redefined that role on our behalf. The man's role has always been that stoic arrangement where the man is supposed to be, like Chris likes saying, the provider, the one who pays the bills and does all those things. But the role of man as a protector, as a role model, as a head of the household, those ones have changed. Yeah, because these days the women and the children are holding fort on their own and saying, "You're here for us, but we can do this just as well." Yeah, but the idea of provider, like I always say, Chris is very traditional about that, but he says that role has not changed, and I totally agree with him. Mm-hmm. The man is always seen as that one who's supposed to give whatever is required of him by the woman in his life, by the children in his life, and I guess all the attendant relatives. But over time, as we evolve, as society evolves, the male role, of course, cannot be rigid. The reason we say that is because when we look at reciprocity, you can only be defined as a husband if your wife says you are a husband. Because you could be a husband by title, but your wife always says, this man is not man enough. So every woman around you knows you're not man enough. But if she agrees and says, this man of mine is just the best, then you are a husband, according to them. So basically, I think what we are saying in short is that the man's role has always remained what it is. The women around us have evolved rather faster than us, and so they are redefining that role on our behalf.
Okay. Pastor Simon Bevy, do you think the role has changed over time?
To some degree, I would agree with Ken, that in some ways it's changed, but I would say it's not really changed in terms of the basic expectation. It's an expression of it. For example, provision. My wife is working, but she still expects me, in a sense, to give leadership in the way we use resources. And even when she knows that we don't have resources, the two of us, she'll still come to me and say, what do we do? She still expects me to give vision, and provision is not just about the money, it's also about vision for the family. So in some ways, in spite of the changes with women and the involvement of women, they still expect us to give leadership in the society. A few things have changed, like protection. My father used to sleep with a panga next to the pillow. I don't need to do that anymore because I'm in a gated community.
But ultimately, you still are the protector for the home.
I still give, just my presence in the home makes the family feel securer than when I'm not. And then I also protect the children from other things. I mean, I want to know what are they watching, what is in their phone. That's protective. It's expressed differently, but still protection, because I watch over the family.
Chris, do you agree that the role still remains fundamentally the same?
Of
it's
course,
the expression that changes.
Yes,
I think Chris is predictable on this one.
I mean, the world seems to change, but really everything stays the same. And the truth is, of course, men's role has never changed for thousands of years. You have to ask, though, what the fundamental role of men is. And the real fundamental role of a man is to be chosen by a woman. Not all men have children. Not all men pass their genes into the next generation. So
to
men
be chosen or to choose?
Sorry?
To be chosen or to choose a woman?
No, to be chosen. At the end of the day, women are very particular about who they will have as a husband, who they will have to be the father of their children. And If you are not one of the chosen, you might never have been born. It makes no difference. So men compete to be chosen. And when you look at what men do in their lives, it's all about competition. Men compete to be the wealthiest, to have the biggest cars, to paint the prettiest pictures, to sing the best song. Why do men do this? And ask yourself, why don't women? The degree of competition amongst women is much lower than it is.
And it's on different things. It's beauty.
Well, yes, of course they compete in terms of beauty. Not that you can do a huge amount about that. You know, you're stuck with what God gave you. But women don't compete with anything like the ferocity of men. Men will compete to the death. Women do not compete to the death, anything like as much. Why? Because they have to be chosen. Now, that rolls on into what is the role of the man in the family. He has to show his children what it is to be a man, which means you must, son, succeed. You know, he must. If his boy does not succeed, he might just as well never have brought him up. So that is the role of a man, to demonstrate to children.
Maybe I could ask something just in what you said. I like what you said, that we compete to be chosen as well. But I also see that the women sort of parade themselves, sorry to use that word, for us. Because in a sense, in our culture generally, we're the ones who make the first move. If I don't initiate, okay, they have begun to initiate.
But this isn't true, you see. It looks like men make the first move, but they don't. Picture a man walking into a party. You know, he pauses as he walks in. What does he look for? He looks at all the women, and he looks to see which ones look up. He goes to them, doesn't he? He does not go and try his luck with a woman who's quite made it perfectly clear she's not interested in him. So women actually do make
men persist a lot because
that's Hollywood. Hollywood has this wonderful myth that unrequited love persists long enough and she'll give in. No, she won't. She'll file a harassment case. You know.
Actually, if you think about it, Michael, the idea that Chris is trying to put across is in the dating game, during the selection process, the man has that choice. Like, you know, like you say, hypothetically, you walk into a party, you find 10 women, 5 of them already look up and, you know, there's that expression on their faces that, oh,
they're friendly,
they take note.
friendly.
The other 4.5 or 5 totally disinterested because probably they already have the man of their lives. But in that process, as the man is doing that, actually I'm reluctantly agreeing with Chris that it is the women who make that decision. Because if she says, looks wrong, you'll try up to kingdom come, you'll never get through.
I hate to say this.
Maybe,
wonderful analogy.
Could it be that they really don't make, we make the approach and they accept?
They make the choice.
No, they don't.
They make the choice.
They make a choice. What they do, it's all in that first few seconds. You know, it's everything about your confidence, your dress, everything that says.
They can evaluate you very quickly.
In seconds. They look at the way the other people are evaluating you. They look at all the things that say, where does this person sit in society? Is he a winner? And if you walk in with that win on your face, then a certain number of women will look up to you. Now, think of it, the women are in a hierarchy too. The very pretty ones, they won't bother. You know, he's not good enough for me. The one at the bottom won't bother because she thinks
maybe that's why they get
my
left out most of the time.
But you get the idea.
Yes, I get the idea.
Maybe as we move on to another role, Ken, before you join, you know, my brother here. Don't you think that role of, I mean, as a man, I want to feel like a hunter. You know, in high school, we would sit back and see a very beautiful girl and say, let's try our luck. And she would ignore you the first time, ignore you again, and eventually you get to wear her down, and she sort of begins
You see, what happens, Pastor, is that sometimes when you think of what a man does, he is supposed to avail himself in the market, the social market. And that's the first step. Your mother gets you ready for that, your father gets you ready for that. And once you're out there, the girls then, in fact, the reason I say Kenyan women have evolved is because these days they take the initiative, like you hinted. And they are the ones who will make a decision and say, this guy is worth my time. And believe you me, if you're not making a move, they'll make a move. The Kenyan woman today will make a move
Not
on
just
you.
Kenyan women.
I guess, the modern woman. the modern woman will make a move on you. And most men, they still get shocked, like, oops, you know, they're not aware that the woman can actually come and say, hey, how are you doing? I like you. then a lot of men get taken aback, you know. But basically, like Chris says, as traditional as it sounds, you know, our role remains almost stagnant in that regard. Yeah.
Okay.
What he just said is very important. I don't like the word stagnant, but if you look at all the societies around the world, you see the same thing happening. You see societies, you know, as primitive as you like, and what are the women doing? They are choosing the men. You know, you remember Leni Riefenstahl took all those wonderful photographs of the men fighting. Then the men sit down after the fight and the women dance. What do the women do? They choose the winners.
Towards the ones who won, yes.
Wow, you see, that's been going on for 1,000 years.
So it's been going on. Okay, I know Pastor Mbevi, I'm not sure you quite agree. I'm yet to be convinced that that's the way it is actually. But just for the benefit of time and to move on, Pastor, assuming that now the man has been chosen.
The choice has been made.
The choice has been made. He still has a role to play. And maybe, Pastor Mbevi, you can just give us some of the roles, the fundamental roles that a man is required to have and to be viewed as a father. Because again, this being Father's Day, one thing that I would encourage is not just to celebrate your biological father, but there are those father figures. There are those who may not have a biological father they know, but they have somebody they look up to as a man. So what are some of those roles that define you as a man?
Well, I usually like to talk about the 5 Ps, and some of the roles sounds religious, but really it's expressed in different ways. Number 1, I should say, is a provider, and I agree with you in that. And provision is not just having to pay the bills, as I said, it's also leading and showing a vision and giving leadership, facilitation of where we're going in this little economy or civilization we call the family. Number 2 for me is being present, which is probably the most important one, that a man needs to be present with the family. You can't do the rest of the things if you're not present. I mean, I remember some of the ways that I would play with my dad, you know, just being there, not even doing anything, just being able to talk, to play. He lifts me up, he throws me up in the air. You know, that connection, that just relationship, building relationship, which is something for most men. In fact, Ken, a survey we did recently, just with some of the men we were training in one of our programs, showed an average man spends about 7 minutes with his family a day, on average.
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
Oh, Lord.
How much could you do with that? Because he's busy, he comes in late.
He's tired.
When the kids, he just wants to watch news and Manu versus Arsenal and sleep. He doesn't really spend time with the children. So presence for me. I think a lot of the people cry out there with father hunger. He wasn't there. I just needed dad to be there, just to play with me, check my homework book and things like that. And so provider, presence, provision is the, protection is the other one. And we have said that the expression of that is different now. But just being able to care enough for your family to watch over and against the ills of a society. There's something that happened some while ago that made me feel like I wasn't a very good protector for my family. I was watching TV and I saw, you know, fire caught in one of the homes, and the children, you know, with their mother, you know, burned to death in the home. And the man was away, I think, in a pub or something. And when he came back, they were all dead. And then I just realized, actually, I haven't done a fire drill in my home. I'm a protector, but I've not been able to tell my children, what do they do in case fire broke out? And I went and got trained at G4S and went home and trained them. And I felt good as a dad that I was actually thinking protectively over my family. So expression is different. The other one is priesthood. I think fathers traditionally have always been expected to be able to lay down the law, as it were, and train values. I mean, that's why we talk about proverbs. And a lot of proverbs were by the elders, you know. They sort of guided culture and the values of the society. And that's what I call a priest. One who talks about faith, whatever faith that is, whatever people believe in, and the values as well. And lastly for me is what I call a prophet. And a prophet is one who speaks into the life of another, not the prophets we see these days, Ken, on TV.
We shall name no names.
Yeah, but the one who tells you, in a sense, who you are. I think, Ken, you teach in sociology,
yes.
But especially around teenage, children look up a lot to what their daddy says about them. If they affirm them, if they tell them who they are. I was doing a talk with some prostitutes in a controlled environment. And I was surprised to realize about 90% of them had been called a prostitute by their dad. There's just some power in a father telling you you're beautiful, you're useless, you're a prostitute. My father, before he died when I was 8 years old. He had told me something that I've kept with since then. One day, I think it was just a word he said in passing. He said, Musyoka, that's the name he used to call me, you're going to be a leader. And I don't remember many other things he said, but I still remember that. My dad believed in me, and I just wanted to live out to fulfill his prophecy in a sense. So those are the 5 roles I see. Again, expressed differently, but roles.
Chris, maybe I'll come to you, and let's talk about maybe the provider, for example, because in the olden days, it was easy to tell what the provider was, because all he did was go out, hunt, bring, and it was quite easy, although she would still go and, you know, fetch water and all that. But that seems to have changed with time, and I'm not sure, just like Pastor had said earlier, whether it's because the role changes in our minds or it's the execution. We have the woman maybe even earning more than the man. Has that role changed? Should it change? What do we do about it?
No, it hasn't changed. Women have actually always been more independent than people think. If you look back in history, women have been tough. You know, the Viking women were notorious. You know, there were Elizabethan women who ran huge estates. It is not true that women were always downtrodden and the men stood on them and now they've suddenly recovered their heritage. It's not true. They've always been pretty independent. But women have always selected men for their ability to protect and provide and so on. Absolutely true. I mean, in the most simple societies, you will find that it's always the best hunter who is selected. He's the one who has the most children. I hate to say it, it's the most effective killer. You know, the guy who's got the biggest sword. He gets selected.
The warrior.
The warrior, yeah. So women have always chosen men for their ability to provide and protect, always.
Okay, let's talk about presence, Ken. And of course, again, given the kind of world we're living in, it's completely changed. One leaves very early in the morning because of traffic or whatever excuse we have, because sometimes they're more of excuses than reasons, comes back home very late, and there just doesn't seem to be that time that one should spend with a child. How do we go around that?
You know, I always tell my students when we are defining roles in class, and of course there's always an uproar, but I stand firm when I say the most difficult role in the world is being a husband and a father. Just basically being a man, because you know there's so much that's expected of you, and your wife is almost like a barometer. You know, she keeps telling you, oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do it like this? And then when you do that, she says, I wish we had done it like that. You know, then the children come in with the same story. Daddy, we need to do this, we need to do that. And you know, you sit there and you're thinking, I'm one person, for heaven's sake. Yeah, but you have to do that for them. And presence a lot of times is, like Pastor says, when that baby comes and says, Daddy, I want to give you a massage, and you know they're going to do a very bad job of that massage, but you're still there for them to give them that chest, you know, to rub. And that memory lingers, believe you me, it lingers for a long time. The reason I say the role of being a husband is very difficult is because when we talk to men before marriage, what are the rules you're going to have? They have so many, about 21 of them. You know, my wife must do this, she must look good, she must come home early, she must cook well, blah, 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 fish cake. When you ask the women, what do you expect? They usually just have one rule, and she says, I need my man to be there. But you know, being there carries 100 other things in it. You know, so if you really don't understand being there, you might think, oh, physical, I need to be home. But I always say this, when a woman says, be there for me, you could be in New York, and she's in Kisumu. But she knows you're there for her because you can cry with her on the phone, you know. So basically, the presence thing sometimes is not necessarily physical. If you're able, like these days, with the help of the phone, technology, to communicate with your children, every time you just wake up and hit up on them, and they get back to you. And sometimes they tell you more than they would if you're there. You know, if you're just sitting there, maybe mommy is sitting there growling at them, they're not able to say what they want to say. But when you finally open up that line and they know that he's not that rigid, I can talk to him, believe you me, that's well,
so Pastor, is the presence thing more of an emotional need than a physical
It's a connection.
I think it's both. I would say it's both, Ken, because I think some men could say, okay, I'm not going to be around for a year, so I'm going to do that. But there are some things you can't do, you know, from a distance.
On your phone.
So when you're away and you're busy working, you should do that. But you should also then be home and present.
True.
Because, you know, they need the touch, the feel, you know, the playing around, the expression on your face when you're present. So I think it's both. When globalization and reality takes you out of home, then you need to compensate for that and do a lot more of the other. But that shouldn't be
the
an
paradox
excuse
of
to
it
stay away.
is like, I was telling my daughter just a short while ago, I think about 3 weeks ago, she goes, Daddy, you know, you're always so busy. And then I said, okay, fine, but when I'm home, I don't see you. Because she's in her room. Then she says, as long as I know you're there.
Defining presence very well.
You know, so presence sometimes is
just, maybe this is something that we are losing over time. And maybe, Chris, we can talk about this being the concentration on the girl child as opposed to the boy child, because that, of course, has taken a lot of the center stage. Could we be short-circuiting our system in a way?
Oh, yes. Yes, I mean, I have nothing against campaigns for the girl child, but people have lost sight of what it is to be a boy in all of that. And one of the things that's really been lost is the idea that boys and girls have to be brought up differently. You know, if you looked at schools 50, 60 years ago, they treated boys and girls differently. They had different expectations of boys and girls. And those expectations were very much built on how boys and girls would have to behave when they were grown up. So in a way, schools and the family were good learning grounds for children becoming adults. Suddenly the emphasis on the girl child took all that away. Suddenly everybody's supposed to be a girl. You know, boys are supposed to go to school and sit quietly in their desks, you know. The idea that a boy could rush around the playground and maybe fight, God help us, you know. Really weird. So we are bringing up boys who don't know what it is to be men. I'm afraid we've taken all their role models away. You know, the emphasis, I hate to say this, on fathers spending ages out of the family and all the rest of it, they're not there. They're not there to be the role model. I'm not necessarily meaning one-to-one playtime, but they must be in the child's life. The child must see how the man is leading his life. They must see how he's interacting with other men, with other people generally. They must see how he treats his wife, how he treats his children, because what are they doing? They're learning how to do it.
Yeah, they say children learn more from what they see than what they hear.
True.
Pastor Mbevi, I know that you have been very vocal and very deliberate in having campaigns, especially concentrating on the boy child and the man. Tell us maybe a little bit about it, because I think it has to be a deliberate effort.
That's true, and I love what you've said. We are not saying that empowering the girl takes away from the boy. But we are saying, I think we have made a lot of noise and done a lot towards that, and we should still continue. But we also need to do something for the boy. I think I hear lots of complaints, Ken, all the time. People say, where are the good men? They're gone. The few good men are either taken or dead. That's what I hear all the time. But I feel like we don't realize that the raw material of masculinity tomorrow is a boy today. And if we don't do anything about the boy, and just that fathers are not involved in their sons' lives. You know, I love the way it was traditionally. That as a father, if you were a blacksmith, you would socialize your boy to be a blacksmith. And that dealt with you would talk together, rub shoulders together, do things, talk as you do that. So there's a way that you socialize the boy into masculinity and have conversations. And he's watching you like throughout the day, most of the days. If you're a shepherd, then he would become a shepherd boy. Of course, we have lost that. But I think we need to be intentional in seeing what do we do with the boy. The stats are scary. With fathers not as involved, I think the last census, they said 40% of Kenyan households don't have a living dad. Now, that to me is a tragedy in many ways. The boys in those homes don't have a role model. So for me, I've been very vocal about it. In fact, we're doing a walk this Saturday as a celebration of Father's Day.
March for the boy, right?
Yeah, a march for the boy. Can you invite it if you're around? And we're not just making noise about the boy. We're saying, is it possible in the next 1 year to intentionally mentor 1 million teenage boys? You know, fathers like us go and sit with boys, especially in high schools. A lot of them don't have a relationship with their dads. And even if they have, the way the traditional culture worked is you had uncles and several other men who reinforced what your dad is doing. So the boy had several role models that he looked at. And I think they say in psychology between 14 and 21, the most important voice in a child's life is the voice of a mentor. If he's not there, then the peer will have the loudest voice. And I think for teenage boys, we just need a community of men. I think a boy is made a man in the community of men, and our society shows that very well. And so that's why I'm passionate about this. We need to do something about it.
All right, before we bring in Sophia, maybe you can tell us this particular march for the boy, is it something that's just a one-off, or is it something that is being planned to be done long-term? Because one of the things that I've mentioned is that it needs to be deliberate, and that's something definitely we're not doing enough of.
Yeah, the march we do on Saturday in the morning to Uru Gardens, but it's only a launch of a movement. We're saying we're launching the Boys to Men campaign, that every boy deserves a chance to be mentored and socialized into responsible masculinity across the nation. We're telling the men, can we get together and be the mentors? So the march is a launch of a campaign. And we intend every Father's Day in the next 5 years to do something. It may not be a march, or it may be, but with this march, we launch that and we start the conversation.
All right, Sophia, welcome. And I don't know if you've learned a lot about the male figure and the father from the conversation.
It's something that Ken said about, you know, when a woman says they need you to be there, it's not necessarily that you're there physically. I remember there's a time I was in an accident on Mombasa Road, and this let me not give that story.
No, you have to finish. This person was there.
Was there and yet was not around.
Okay.
You get.
Yes, I totally hear you.
Then hallelujah. So was not there, you know, but
you felt
the crazy,
their presence.
their presence, just, you know, in helping. First you come down with all of the madness going around and getting you back to normal as soon as possible. So they're not there physically, but that's the thing that came to my mind when you were talking about that. So yes, in a sense for women, but still you want them there, not always elsewhere.
Not a remote control man.
All right, thank you very much, Chris Hart, who is a relationship expert, Pastor Simon Bevy, Executive Director, Transform Nations, and Ken Oko's a sociologist. Thank you very much for joining us. This is where we'll have to wind it up and call it a day. And yeah, definitely enjoyed the show today.
I did as well. It was great to be your guest. Thanks for inviting me on your panel. Should do that more often.
Yes, and you're a very good panelist. In fact, somebody on Twitter wrote and said, you qualify to interview. So I thought, well... Yeah,
I qualify to interview?
Yeah, I guess they don't know that normally you actually seated here interviewing, so I don't know. Maybe
no, I saw that tweet. No, to interview porters.
Oh, I see. Oh, yes. Okay, maybe I didn't read the full... But anyway, thank you for being a good panelist. Well behaved.
Special thanks.
Special thanks to Sophia Onuna, my co-host, was a panelist today.
Yes, and to the great team that makes the show happen. Thank you so much. So I'll be away tomorrow for an interview. We're going to shoot out of town, but you'll be with Michael, so we'll see you sometime next week.
And this is how she breaks the news to me, that she'll not be in tomorrow.
Yeah, that he'll be taking over this great cause. And
let me not even tell you how I ended up doing the father thing, because we have some domestic issues that we need to sort out.
See now, if you're a married couple, wageni wakikuja unawacha waende kwanza, so bye.
Have yourselves a great day. Take care of yourselves and each other. And remember Father's Day on Sunday. Take care of your father.
And we begin with matters security in northern Kenya, where Garissa, Wajir and Mandera counties have received new criminal investigations department commanders in changes affecting more than 50 senior CID officers. A move aimed at enhancing security in the northeastern Kenya that is bearing the brunt of Al-Shabaab attacks. The new CID commander for Garissa County is former head of Anti-Terror Police Unit, Boniface Moniki, while Said Baruch will be in charge of Mandera County and Kerry Nyawida will take over Wajir. The counties in the northern part of Kenya have been badly affected by insecurity. CID Director Ndegwa Muhoro announced the changes, saying they are aimed at ensuring crimes within the affected counties are addressed. The movement of Mwaniki, the former ATPU head of Garissa, is seen as a strategy to address terror threats that have been on the rise in that region at large. It's the part of the changes that have been implemented since the Garissa College siege that left 148 people dead, most of them students. Local commanders have since been moved and new ones posted there. And still in the region, we have we have soldiers who are injured by Al-Shabaab militants in Lamu over the weekend got one kind of a visit on Wednesday morning. President Uhuru Kenyatta, alongside the newly appointed Chief of Defense, Samson Motheve, celebrated the soldiers who were injured while combating the Al-Shabaab militants trying to attack the Lamu base. The president said that Al-Shabaab are losing the war in Somalia and that they are cowards for bringing the battle to Kenya's soft targets like Lamu. The KDF officers are currently recuperating at the Armed Forces Memorial Hospital in Nairobi.
We are there to support that country, to stabilize that country at the request of the African Union, not under any other request. And we will continue with our mission, as Africa will continue with her mission. And neither shall we be intimidated by those cowards who choose not to fight in the open front, but choose soft targets. And the mere fact that they choose soft targets means that they themselves are losing the war and they are seeking to cowardize us as a population. We will not agree.
We will fight this war to the very end to make sure that we make Kenya safe and sound again. We will follow them in the bush, we will follow them at sea, we will follow them everywhere they go until we make sure that they are out of our borders.
Elsewhere, the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association is now seeking to convince the chair of Legal Committee, Samuel Chepkonga, to withdraw the bill on the two-third gender rule and seek consensus on achieving the two-third gender balance as the August deadline on the gender party rule fast approaches. This comes as the Attorney General says the Cabinet will sit to deliberate on modalities of achieving the gender balance equation.
In terms of lobbying, we are saying bringing Chepkonga to the negotiating table because we have no authority to drop his bill. We can only negotiate.
We are going to go to seek that all the proposals that are on the table, one being the one by the technical working group, which myself and Senator Sijeni proposed to bring on the floor, that of Honorable Soipan, that of the Chepkonga bill that is under the Jailer Committee, and Agostino Neto's bill, that we are going to seek to bring all these bills together on a negotiating table.
We have now decided to leave the boardroom. We have to take this issue back to the grassroots, and I totally agree with that. We have to allow the women of Kenya at the grassroots to own the process, the opinion leaders at the grassroots, and the political class and leaders.
And I would like to give this as a preliminary proposal, to have 2 women per county, the county seats. Why can't we have it that one of those women is above 35 and the other one is below 35?
I'm afraid about if we do not come up with a system that allows some competition and rewards those that show the greatest amount of commitment to the implementation of this constitutional principle.
To ask Honorable Chepkonga to withdraw his bill number one. And we must use all the powers on land, in the sea, and on air. And I'm sure you understand what I mean by that. The powers of Honorable Dwara and the Speaker and the leaders who are here and the Attorney General are somewhere. So we must now put all our pressure on Honorable Chikuna. Yes. Even if it means going to his house, talking to his great wife.
We remain committed. And as we speak here today, the Cabinet memorandum on this issue is lying with Cabinet Office and may be debated as early as tomorrow, Thursday.
Elsewhere, the Council of Imams and Preachers of Kenya, CIPK, Nyeri branch, has lashed out at those advocating for terrorism on the pretext of fighting for Islam, saying true Islam does not advocate for what groups such as Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda perpetuate. While speaking in Nyeri town, the chairman of the Nyeri branch, Uledi Majid, said radicalization should be stopped at all costs. He, however, said that lack of job opportunities for the youth was a contributing factor to Muslim youth being recruited by terror groups. Uledi, who was accompanied by other Muslim leaders in Nyeri, also asked security officials in Nyeri to allow Muslims to mark Ramadan in peace, as some will be leaving mosques in Nyeri at late hours after prayers.
Tunaomba serikali katika huu wakati wa Ramadhan wawe pamoja na sisi katika kutupatia security, kama vile ambavyo wamesema kwamba kuna zile swala za usiku ambazo tunaziswali za tarawih. Tutakuwa tukitarajia na vile tutakaa na serikali hapa kwa sababu ya amani. Vile tunachukua muda huu pia tukiombea nchi nzima amani.
Hiyo mambo ya radicalization kutokea hapo, vile nafikiri governor wetu na serikali yake atajihusisha sana kupitia kwa hiyo County Policing Authority kumaliza hiyo mambo ya vijana kwenda mbali. Vile mashehe katika misikiti tunawaambia wakihubiri kwamba tofauti ya mambo ya jihadi, kujitolelea muhanga kwa upuzi, hii mambo ya kudanganywa vijana wetu kwamba ati anaenda kupigana akifa ati ataenda wapi, ataenda peponi ama nini, hiyo ni urongo. Hakuna jihadi. Jihadi mzuri ni ya kupigana nafsi yako, kuacha mambo mabaya, kufanya kumwabudu Mwenyezi Mungu. Na hakuna katika Qurani pahali tunaambiwa tuue ama mtu anaambiwa auwe ati atakwenda peponi kuwa bila sababu. Hiyo ni vibaya. Na huko Thika na Mombasa vile kama Council of Imams and Preachers of Kenya tulisema hiyo ndio itakuwa jukumu letu la kwanza, kushirikiana na serikali kumaliza hiyo, kwa kwamba hakuna vijana wetu watahusika na hiyo. Tena ni vipande yote mbili, Waislamu na wasiokuwa Waislamu.
Elsewhere, a family in Trans Nzoia is seeking justice after their son, who was working in South Sudan, was allegedly arrested and jailed for 4 years. The family of Emmanuel Nyongesa Shiundu from Kiminini constituency claim their son went to South Sudan in 2008 in search of greener pastures after he was unable to find employment in Kenya. Emmanuel is said to have gotten employment as a supervisor in a private business belonging to a Mr. John Deng, a Sudanese nationalist. But on request to take his annual break, his boss declined to let him. This prompted him to leave at his own will. However, he was allegedly intercepted, arrested and accused of stealing from his boss. He was taken to court in South Sudan and he was charged for stealing and given a 3-year jail term, which he served until January this year. But after completing his jail term, he is still detained, and the accuser, John Deng, is now demanding for 1.6 million shillings so that he can be released and come back to Kenya.
Ikiwa hiyo contract haitapatikana, kijana wangu hata kuja. Naomba serikali ya Kenya kupitia kwa rais wetu Uhuru pamoja na deputy wake Bwana Ruto mtusaidie tuweze kuona mtoto wetu. John yule wa Nile Global alikuwa anadai kijana wangu 74,000 Sudanese pounds, ambapo ni zaidi ya $1.5 ambapo hata nikiuza shamba langu ambao naishi ni eneo la nusu ekari haziwezi zikatosha.
And back to northern Kenya in Mandera, the state was promising changes in security deployment. The government says it will beef up security by developing more troops to track down pockets of Al-Shabaab militants allegedly roaming villages in northeastern region. This according to Area Regional Commander Ambassador Muhammad Saleh. Ambassador Saleh said that the government is aware of the changing tact by the militants who have invaded villages along the border where they are allegedly spreading their doctrine. These, as members of parliament from Mandera County, have committed themselves to support the government in the war against Al-Shabaab menace in the region.
Whether the Kenyan is going to win the war against Al-Shabaab, yes, we are determined to win. Nothing else will stop us to win. The will is there, both from the government and the people now. With that joint collaboration and determination, there's no doubt why we should not be able to win. This is not Afghanistan. This is a different country. The dynamics are different. So we are really determined to win this war against Al-Shabaab.
We pleaded our support that we are going to work with them, with the security teams, to work together with them so that they can be able to deal with these people for good. As you know, Al-Shabaab has really caused a lot of damage to this region. They have affected a lot of lives in this region. They have managed to scare away all our teachers, all our medical staff. They have made our roads impassable. They are loitering, at will within our region. So we discussed how to deal with this matter.
And moving on, a good number of Nairobi residents lose more than 1 hour every week in a traffic snarl-up. 48% of these are those who use public transport, while 57% use the private means of transport, with 30% of the general population losing a job from the same. It is a transport research conducted by research firm Ipsos Synovate, which suggests that a good number of Nairobi residents prefer other modes of transport, such as bicycles, if they are made available by the transport sector. However, they feel that they have been left out in developing transport policy. That's the current mess in the city.
So how would you like to travel around Nairobi if cost was not an issue? For the general population, again, we know only about a third of them own cars, but we see here that 60% say we would rather use a private car. And that is aspirational because about 2/3 of them don't even have cars. If time was not an issue, again, they still want to use private cars, but 16% would walk.
It's high time we forget about our private vehicles, because the statistics have also indicated that wherever you have got vehicles, concentration, pollution also deteriorates.
Can we have BRT system in the city with the aim of convincing most people who use their own personal vehicles to leave their personal vehicles at home and start using public transport? But from the study you can get the concerns being raised. Some of these concerns touch on safety.
And in Nakuru County, Finance Executive Francis Mathea's fate hangs in the balance following a report by the County Assembly recommending his removal for alleged incompetence. The Nakuru County Assembly Finance Committee has accused Mathea of sanctioning and implementing revenue automation system costing millions of shillings. The Assembly says the system is defective and has caused a loss to the county as the county continues losing revenue despite automation of revenue collection. The committee expressed its shock after discovering that some of the revenue collection machines had only collected 80 shillings since the beginning of the year.
The county treasurer left this honorable house to speculate on these issues, despite this house being a critical government arm in policy and budget making process. Executive absolutely disregard to implement them.
Tumeona ya kwamba ni kana kwamba kuna mtu ambaye anawazuia ama anawakinga wale watu wakubwa, wale wale ambao ni wanabiashara wakubwa, lakini wale ambao ni wanabiashara wadogo, ambao ni mwananchi wa kawaida, ambaye ni vota wetu, yeye mwenyewe amefinywa zaidi, na tunahakikisha kwamba hata kama halipi anapigwa mpaka faini. Tukiangalia kama hizi billboards zote ambazo zimewekwa Nakuru County, hakuna hata moja ambayo ishawahi lipa hata senti.
Welcome back to KTN News Desk. My name is Abi Agina. It's now time for our business chat segment. And joining me in studio is none other than Paul Wambua, the Chief Executive Officer of Steamer Sacco, just to help us understand what it takes to grow your savings. Welcome to our studios.
Thank you, Abi, for having me. Thank you very much.
Looking at the growth of SACCOs within the country, it has been one of the areas that has been experiencing significant growth in terms of their book balances as well as customer size. From where you see it, are you seeing a situation where Kenyans are growing their savings?
Thank you very much, Abi. It's true what you say, that SACCOs on a year-to-year basis, on average, we've been doing over 20% in the last 10 years or so in terms of balance sheet growth. We've also done well in growing the membership, growing savings, growing the market segments within which SACCOs operate, and also including growing the outreach. In every county you'll find a very strong SACCO that is serving Kenyans. So indeed we've enjoyed a lot of growth in the last couple of years from 2002.
Maybe what's really driving this growth?
One is, and we have to thank the government in terms of providing a statutory, regulatory as well as legislative enabling environment. The landscape has been friendly, especially with the coming in of the SACCO Act 2008, creating a regulator specifically for SACCOs, and this has created, enhancement of the confidence level that Kenyans have. This is demonstrated by, in the last 3 years, very, good growth in terms of deposits, in terms of the loan book, in terms of more Kenyans coming to the forum, the SACCO industry. In fact, Kenya is a leading growing country in terms of membership in the whole of the world right now, and that is very good, and we really appreciate this. Of course, we have got other drivers. Technology has been one of them. Technology is also driving our growth because our members are able to leverage on technological platforms to access loans, to access the savings platforms.
Speaking about technology, just the other day you released a very innovative product named Empower.
Yes, indeed, and which really is a milestone for us, because what we are doing right now is to enable our members to access services without necessarily visiting any of our brick and mortar branches. That has got a lot of advantages. One is it reduces the cost of transactions, it creates convenience to the membership, it saves them time, and ultimately an efficient financial system is good for the membership and for Kenyans, because that will enable many more people to access SACCO facilities through cost-effective mechanisms like technology. Empower for us is something that we are proud of, and we hope to grow it significantly to also access our diaspora membership, because we are very keen as one of our strategic objectives to grow our membership through the diaspora market, especially in areas like the USA, Australia, Canada, South Africa, and even UK, where we have a significant proportion of Kenyans living in the diaspora.
Looking at your current customer base, you are talking about 36,000 members who are now going to be able to access these financial services using just their phone. So technically this means a lot of activity is expected to happen in terms of more people are able to access the product. What does this portend for you as a SACCO which is at the verge of crossing over, let's say, to even being a big bank?
Indeed, we are now at 45,000 members, and what you say is true, that we are creating more channels, alternative channels to serve our members. The other thing, of course, for us is we hope that this is one area that can get more Kenyans to join us. We have targets of growing our membership to 300,000 in the next 5 years. We have a target of ensuring that we have a footprint in every area of this country in whatever form, and therefore technology to us is one of the alternative ways of being able to access our brand in the country without necessarily investing in expensive capital outlays in terms of physical branches. The other thing, of course, is that we know that we are all living in an an information economy. We are also very keen to tap the youth, because we, as a SACCO, we do know that we need the youth to create our growth, and therefore youth, to them, technology is a lifestyle, and we see that as an opportunity. We also are taking advantage of the confidence that Kenyans now have on technological platforms. As we all know, in the last 8 or 9 years or so, of M-Pesa, of M-Shwari. The other important thing, of course, is that to us, financial access, playing a role in enabling Kenyans access financial services, is a contribution to Vision 2030. And we believe that the more we can be able to get Kenyans to join our SACCO and also to join the entire SACCO system, getting Kenyans to play a role in savings and mobilization of domestic resources, the better for this country, because financial access, financial deepening, financial broadening of access to financial services is a key national economic objective of the country.
And maybe finally, just looking at the savings culture of Kenyans, it hasn't been that quite, I would say, up there because of a number of factors. And being one of the leading SACCOs in the country, from a personal finance perspective, what does it take for a Kenyan to grow his or her savings?
I agree with you that we haven't done very well in calculating and promoting a culture of national savings, something that is very well articulated in Vision 2030. The goal of the government is to grow gross domestic savings. I mean, savings as a percentage of gross domestic product to about 30%. But of course, there are things we need to do. One of them is we need to introduce financial literacy at the basic level of our education system. I think that is a right that we need to give to our children, and therefore, for us in SACCOs, education is an investment. We see that as something that needs to be done. We obviously want to ask the government to reduce a lot of statutory restrictions, because as SACCOs today, we are not part of the national payment system formally, because we have to partner with other organizations to be able to access the national payment system. Some of the things that as SACCOs we see ourselves being able to do, if the legislation and the regulatory framework allows us to do, letters of credit, LCs, Forex, those are trade finance, performance guarantees. Those are opportunities that a lot of our members who are doing SMEs, and where a lot of Kenyans get jobs and where the government gets a lot of taxes, need to be enabled. And this is an area that we see SACCOs partnering with the government to create jobs, to grow the economy, and to provide better services to Kenyans.
Thank you, Mr. Paul Wambua, for making time to be with us.
Thank you very much, Abby,
for those interesting perspectives around what's happening in the SACCOs industry.
Thank you very much.
Let's now cross over to Ian Wafula, who...
And that story brings us to a close this afternoon. Our Twitter handle is @KTN Kenya. Do let us know what is happening around you, and we shall be glad to inform the rest of the country. My name is Ian Wafula. For now, however, enjoy the rest of your viewing.
wananchi kuharibiwa sifa kufuatia visa vya wanawake kwa dhulumu waume zao. Keriako Tobiko sasa agiza Charity Ngilu kushtakiwa kuhusiana na sakata ya wizi wa ardhi mtaani Karen.
Today is 17th June 2015. At 23:59 tonight, it will be global deadline for analog switch off as per the International Communications Union ITU Geneva 2006 agreement.
Leo ndio siku ya mwisho kwa runinga zote kuhamia mfumo wa dijitali. Je, makataa ya redio kufanya hivyo ni lini? Michezoni, ligi kuu ya soka kuwekwa kwenye mizani katika dimba la Chan. Naam, karibu kwenye taarifa za KTN leo. Tuna taarifa zetu na taarifa za tanzia ambapo takriban watu 9 wameuawa katika mapigano mapya ambayo yamezuka kufuatia mivutano kati ya jamii ya Degodia na ile ya Garre. Shambulizi hilo aidha linasemekana kuwa ni la kulipiza kisasi kutoka pande zote. Shambulizi hilo linasemekana kufanyika katika vitongoji vitatu ambavyo viko takriban kilomita 30 katika mpaka wa Kenya na Ethiopia. Kulingana na kamishna wa kaunti ya Mandera Alex Olenkoyo, uchunguzi zaidi unaendelea kutafuta kiini na suluhu ya mashambulizi hayo. Kwingineko ni kwamba Rais Uhuru Kenyatta amesema kwamba Kenya haitababaishwa na kundi la Al-Shabaab alilolitaja kama kundi ambalo lina hofu na lilotawaliwa na uoga. Rais ambaye alikuwa akihutubu pale alipozuru hospitali ya kijeshi ya Forces Memorial hapa jijini Nairobi, ambako aliweza kuwafariji maafisa wa polisi waliojeruhiwa kwenye shambulizi la kigaidi lililotekelezwa katika kaunti ya Lamu, alisema kwamba katika mashambulizi yanayofanywa na wanamgambo hao wamekuwa wakiwalenga tu watu wasiokuwa na hatia badala ya kujitokeza hadharani na kupambana kiume. Rais Uhuru Kenyatta ambaye aliandamana na mkuu wa majeshi Samson Mwathathe alipongeza maafisa hao kwa juhudi zao katika kulinda taifa hili dhidi ya magaidi. Wakati huo mkurugenzi mkuu wa kitengo cha upelelezi Ndegwa Muhoro amefanya marekebisho katika kitengo hicho ili kuboresha hali ya usalama humu nchini. Takriban maafisa 50 wa kitengo cha upelelezi wamehamishwa kutoka maeneo yao ya kazi na kupelekwa maeneo mengine ili kuimarisha hali ya usalama. Miongoni mwa kaunti ambazo zimepata maafisa wapya ni wa CID ni Wajir, Garissa na hata Mandera. Alikuwa mkuu wa kitengo cha kukabiliana na magaidi ATPU Boniface Mwaniki kwa sasa ndiye afisa mkuu wa upelelezi katika kaunti ya Garissa, ilhali Said Baruk ndiye afisa mkuu wa upelelezi katika kaunti ya Mandera, huku Kerry Nyawida akipelekwa kaunti ya Wajir.
By those cowards who choose not to fight in the open front but choose soft targets. And the mere fact that they choose soft targets means that they themselves are losing the war and they are seeking to cowardize us as a population. We will not agree.
We will fight this war to the very end to make sure that we make Kenya safe and sound again. We will follow them in the bush, we will follow them at sea, we will follow them everywhere they go until we make sure that they are out of our borders.
Kiongozi wa mashtaka Keriako Tobiko amependekeza kufunguliwa mashtaka kwa waziri wa Charity Ngilu kuhusiana na sakata ardhi ya Karen. Kulingana na barua iliyotumwa kwa vyombo vya habari, ushahidi uliowasilishwa na EACC umempa msukumo Keriako kwamba Ngilu anapaswa kujitetea kizimbani kwa madai ya kuzuia uchunguzi unaoendelea kuhusiana na kipande hicho cha ardhi. Francis Mtalaki na maelezo zaidi.
Baada ya kupokea ushahidi kutoka tume ya kupambana na ufisadi EACC na kuudadisi kwa kina, mkurugenzi wa mashtaka ya umma Keriako Tobiko ameidhinisha kushtakiwa kwa waziri wa ardhi Charity Ngilu. Kwenye barua hii kwa vyombo vya habari, Ngilu anadaiwa kuzuia uchunguzi kuhusiana na sakata kipande cha ardhi cha Karen, madai ambayo sasa waziri huyo aliyesimamishwa kazi kwa muda atalazimika kufika kizimbani kuyajibu kama alivyofanya waziri Michael Kamau.
The DPP had recommended that I be charged with obstruction, not a corruption charge. And therefore I decided that I was going to bring myself and make a statement and get to know when then I'll be taken to court. And that has been done now, and I'll be going to court on Friday.
Ngilu anasemekana kuzuia ushahidi ulioonyesha kuwa ardhi hiyo ilikuwa ni ya umma, makosa ambayo yanadaiwa kulimbikiziwa maafisa wakuu katika afisi ya ardhi, ikiwemo msajili mkuu wa ardhi na naibu wake pamoja na naibu mkurugenzi wa usorovea.
You see, what I've been charged with is not a corruption issue, as has been said time and again. It is about obstruction. That's not a corruption issue. So I'm sure I'll be vindicated.
And you confirm that?
And I look forward to continuing working and serving the public of Kenya.
Madai ni ya utumizi mbaya wa mamlaka ambayo Ngilu atalazimika kusafisha jina lake mahakamani wakati wote kuanzia sasa, wakati ambapo mahakama itakapomtaka kufika mbele yake kujibu madai hayo. Tobiko ambaye amekuwa akipigwa vita katika siku za hivi karibuni anaonekana kuwanyemelewa washukiwa mmoja baada ya mwingine, hasa baada ya tume ya ufisadi kutangaza kuwa mawaziri hao waliotajwa katika ripoti ya EACC hawajaponyoka mikononi mwa mizani ya haki. Francis Mtelaki, KTN leo.
Na mtazamaji, leo ni siku ya mwisho kwa mataifa yote kote ulimwenguni kuhamia mfumo wa dijitali kulingana na makubaliano ya mkutano muungano wa kimataifa wa mawasiliano uliofanyika Geneva mwaka 2006. Lakini huku hayo yakijiri, ulimwengu unatarajiwa kushuhudia kusitishwa kwa mawimbi ya analogi na vile kuingia kwa mfumo wa dijitali ifikapo mwendo wa saa 6 usiku. Bado kuna changamoto kadha wa kadha zinazoikumba sekta ya mawasiliano hasa katika kuimarisha hatua zake na kuwadhibiti. Alimanzu na taarifa kamili.
Ni uhamisho uliokumbwa na changamoto kadhaa nchini kuanzia mwezi wa Disemba mwaka jana, changamoto zilizoelekezwa mahakamani na hatimaye kusababisha zogo baina ya runinga kuu nchini na mamlaka ya mawasiliano nchini CAK. Na hadi leo, wakati tunaingia rasmi ulimwengu wa mfumo wa upeperushaji matangazo kwa njia ya dijitali, sekta ya mawasiliano inakumbwa na changamoto za kuweka miundo misingi maalum ya kisasa ili kusambaza mawimbi hayo na kujenga vituo maalum vya kuyapokea.
In fact, the bulk of the initial work has been done because we've done the surveys, we've mapped the areas, and what is left is basically building the base stations, which we will do, and we have all the resources we need to build the stations in all those towns that I mentioned.
Kulingana na waziri wa mawasiliano, mfumo wa dijitali umeleta mafanikio hasa katika sekta ya mawasiliano ya mtandao baada ya kuanza kutumiwa kwa mtandao wa kisasa wa 4G. Pia wizara hiyo iliondoa wasiwasi uliokuwepo wa kuanzishwa kwa uhamisho wa redio hadi katika mawimbi ya dijitali nchini, wakisubiri mikakati maalum kuandaliwa na muungano wa kimataifa wa mawasiliano ITU.
We are guided by ITU. You know, we don't do this on our own. We don't act on a whim. Wake up and sleep tomorrow and say we want to migrate. We have to work with the ITU. And discussions are now going on at the ITU on the process of migrating radio to the digital platform.
Digital radio broadcasting standards have not yet been agreed at international level. That is one. Because if they are not agreed, then we can't just bring any standards to be able to operate it. Confused.
Mamlaka ya mawasiliano nchini CAK imetoa leseni 70 za kuanzishwa kwa runinga mpya, huku 50 zikiendelea kupeperusha matangazo yake.
Kenya inajiunga na mataifa mengine ulimwenguni kote kuafikiana na tarehe 17 mwezi wa Juni, yani usiku wa leo, itakuwa wamehamia mfumo wa dijitali. Kwa sasa hata hivyo, taifa linakabiliwa na changamoto ya kuhakikisha kwamba wanaweka miundo misingi inayohitajika katika kila kituo kuhakikisha mfumo huo ni wenye kufaulu. Alimanzu, KTN leo, Nairobi.
Na kutoka Nairobi tuelekee hadi katika kaunti ya Nyeri ambapo kulikuwepo na mseto wa hisia katika kikao maalum kilichoandaliwa katika bunge la kaunti ya Nyeri mapema hii leo, pale wawakilishi wa wodi walipojadili kwa kina swala tata la dhulma dhidi ya wanaume na haswa visa ambavyo vimegonga vichwa vya habari hivi majuzi. Wengi walisema kwamba swala hili lazima litatuliwe haraka iwezekanavyo kwa ushirikiano wa wenyeji wenyewe wakisaidiana na viongozi wao. Carol Nderi alihudhuria kikao hicho cha bunge na kutuandalia taarifa ifuatayo.
Mjadala ambao umekuwa ukitokota katika siku za hivi karibuni kuhusu dhuluma za kijinsia dhidi ya wanaume katika kaunti ya Nyeri leo umefika katika kikao cha bunge la kaunti hapa Nyeri. Hisia kali zilidhihirika huku kila mwakilishi wa wadi akitaka kutoa hoja zake kuhusu mada hii ya wanaume kunyofolewa au kupigwa na wake zao. Wengi walionekana kutoridhishwa na kile walikitaja kuwa sifa za Nyeri kuharibiwa kwa kupakwa tope.
The other night as I was sleeping, Mr. Speaker, my fiancé called me and he told me he had second thoughts of actually marrying me because I'm a Nyeri woman. report positive things from Nyeri County. But now we are calling them transformers. Because they do the best work. So we can't do it. We cannot, as Nyeri women, do flat our transformers their rights. We know their work.
Na kuwa kejeli na soni zimewakandamiza Wakenya wenye asili ya kaunti hii ambayo jana tu ilitajwa katika ripoti ya uwezo kwa kaunti iliyo na viwango bora zaidi vya elimu nchini.
The perpetrators are imported from Kirinyaga and Nyandarua. I don't want to say that it is from Nyandarua and Kirinyaga are bad, but that's a fact. That the ladies who committed these serious crimes in Nyeri are not from Nyeri.
Kwenye mjadala huu, baadhi ya wawakilishi wa wadi wamejaribu kutafuta sababu za haya yote. Wamesema kwamba kizazi cha sasa cha wanaume kimepotelea kwenye ulevi na kusahau majukumu yao.
Those men, most of them are very much drunken. They are not provided for their family. I don't want to believe that my wife today can just come in and get my genitals and just chop them off.
If the father comes home drunk and the body is mutilated, he may not even know until he sees blood.
A sober man cannot just come and be removed those private parts.
Hakukosa wale waliounga mkono kuadhibiwa kwa wanaume wanaokiuka majukumu yao ya kiume.
They don't want you to sleep today, tomorrow, for 7 days without giving their services. Hence, when you are too drunk, you cannot perform. Men are also to blame.
I have all my treasures with me.
Wengi wakipendekeza suluhisho kwa janga hili ambalo limemulikwa pande zote.
We have all as a community left our cultural practices to the dogs, Mr. Speaker.
Ni swala nzito ambalo limejadiliwa katika bunge la kaunti, huku akisema masuala ya unyofozi na wanaume kucharazwa lazima yakome, kwani hawataki tena jina la Nyeri kuchafuliwa. Carol Derry, KTN, bunge la kaunti ya Nyeri.
Naam, habari ambazo zimenifikia hapa studioni muda mchache ni kwamba mwezi umeonekana. Dhihirisho basi kwamba hapo kesho panapo majaliwa yake Maulana, Waislamu kote ulimwenguni wataanza kutekeleza kufunga Ramadhani. Makobe hawatakuwa na nafasi. Lakini kando na hayo, ama tukiwa katika taarifa na ufungamano na usalama, ni kwamba wakazi wa kaunti za kaskazini mashariki mwa Kenya wamelalama kuhusu marufuku kutotoka nje, hususan wakati huu wa mwezi mtukufu wa Ramadhan. Kama anavyotuarifu mwanahabari Hussein Mohamed, swala la usalama limependekezwa liangaziwe zaidi hasa wakati huu wa mwezi mtukufu wa Ramadhan.
Huku matayarisho ya kuukongwea mwezi mtukufu wa Ramadhani yakifika kileleni mwake, swala la usalama limekuwa akilini mwa waumini wa dini ya Kiislamu. Mjini Mombasa, wasomi pamoja na mashekhe wamefanya mikutano maalum ya kuwaelimisha vijana katika kaunti hiyo. Zaidi ya wasomi 72 walio na shahada ya uzamifu maarufu PhD walikutana ili kutafuta suluhu mwafaka swala zima la usalama pamoja na mbinu bora za kuzungumza na vijana.
Kusema ukweli, ingekuwa watu wenye kutaka kuondosha matatizo haya wanakuja kwa wasomi, si kwenda kuchukua mtu yoyote wakamfanya ni shekhe.
Aidha, gavana wa kaunti hiyo Hassan Ali Joho amewahakikishia wakazi wa kaunti hiyo wakati mtulivu, huku akiwataka kujihusisha na kuwasaidia maafisa wa usalama katika kukabiliana na utovu wa usalama.
Well, to intensify patrols, we have rolled out our own patrols as county, but of course in partnership with the police, so that we have more visibility at night around worshipping areas, particularly now that we have a warning, kind of a warning from the Inspector General.
Tumezungumza na serikali ya county, we are now recruiting specialized units ambao watakuwa ni watu wanaoishi ndani ya mitaa.
Of total security, haswa usiku, manake usiku watakuwa wamefuturu, wako mjini. Tungependa iwe 24/7. Ile security itakuwa ndani ya hii county. Nafikiri mjawahi iona.
Katika kaunti za kaskazini mashariki, wakazi wamejawa na wasiwasi kufuatia yale marufuku ya kutoka nje. Wengi wanasema kuwa hali hii huenda ikaathiri ibada za tarawih ambazo hufanywa nyakati ya usiku wa Ramadhan.
Waislamu walikuwa na swali, na wakati wa Ramadhani muhimu tunaomba kwanza tuondoshewe kafyo, sababu kafyo ikiweko Ramadhani hakuna ibada. Itakuwa kila mtu anakukimbia, hakuna kuswali, na swala ni muhimu.
Hali sawia inaathirika katika kaunti za Wajir, wakazi wakitaka suluhu ya haraka na mwafaka katika swala hilo la marufuku ya kutoka nje. Baadhi ya viongozi aidha wamewapa hakikisho wakazi hao.
Tumeungana IG, mambo ya curfew itatolewa Jumatatu, Jumanne, sababu serikali hii ya Jubilee inatambua umuhimu ya dini ya Kiislamu.
Aidha kule Nyeri, baraza la maimamu na wahubiri wa Kenya CIPK tawi la Nyeri limekemea vikali vijana wanaotekeleza vitendo vya ugaidi kwa kisingizio cha dini, na pia kuwataka maafisa wa polisi kuwaruhusu vijana kuswali bila ya kusumbuliwa.
Tungependa wajue tunaanza kufunga na tungetaka watulinde, waendelee kutulinda kama miaka ile mingine. Miaka ingine yote walikuwa hawasumbui Waislamu wanapofunga kwa sababu tunaswali mpaka sala ya usiku.
Yote 9-10 wakazi wanatarajia Ramadhani ya kheri inayoandamana na wingi wa ibada. Hussein Mohamed, KTN leo.
Naam, karibu. Ligi kuu ya soka itawekwa katika mezani kuanzia wikendi hii pale dimba la kufuzu kwa kombe la barani kwa wachezaji wanaosakata soka na ligi za nyumbani litakapoweza kung'oa nanga dhidi ya Uhabeshi. Kocha Bobby Williamson amesema kwamba hana shaka yoyote kwenye mechi hiyo dhidi ya Uhabeshi, japo anasema kwamba Gor Mahia inahitaji upinzani zaidi katika ligi kuu ili kuweza kuinua hadhi ya soka ya humu nchini. Timu hii itaelekea Ethiopia siku ya Ijumaa.
Mengi yamesemwa kuhusiana na ligi kuu ya soka nchini, mojawapo ikiwa ni kwamba iko sako kwa bako na ile ya Afrika Kusini. Hata hivyo, vilabu vya humu nchini vimeshindwa kutawala barani na kuacha kizazi cha sasa kukisalia tu na kumbukumbu za miaka 80 na 90. Ligi kuu sasa ina muda mwafaka kujitakasa kupitia kwa michuano hii ya CHAN.
It's a test that gives us a sign how strong the league is. But when you get drawn against teams from North Africa, the Tunisians and the Moroccans, these guys spend a lot of money in football. We don't invest as much as them.
Kocha Williamson hata hivyo anasema huku ligi kuu ikiviziwa na wachezaji barani, ni Gor Mahia pekee inayoonekana kuimarika.
I think it's a decent league. The hard part about Kenyan football is winning football matches. Gor Mahia seem to be the only team that can get a run of results together because they score goals, obviously, and they keep clean sheets. But the other teams are quite happy to play for draws at times and waste a lot of time in matches, and I don't think that helps to encourage fans to come.
Kiungo wa kati na anayeongoza ufungaji mabao Ali Abondo alitemwa katika mchuano dhidi ya Congo Brazzaville na anatarajiwa kuongoza Kenya nchini Uhabeshi, huku Williamson akitegemea uzoefu wa Humphrey Mieno, Musa Mohamed na Collins Okoth Gatuso. Bado hajaamua nani atakuwa nahodha wa timu ya taifa Harambee Stars. Fauko ya hayo ana mfumo atakotumia dhidi ya Warriors siku ya Jumapili.
A good idea which team I want to play. I don't know whether to take a cavalier approach and play with 3 strikers or be more defensive and play with 1 striker and a player off, because we'll get talented players in midfield, we'll get talented players up front. So it's a big decision to make which way to go.
Bila shaka mashabiki wa Kenya wataomba dua kwamba hatimaye ligi kuu itadhihirisha kuimarika kwake na kujongea katika himaya za ligi zilizoimarika barani. Hassan Juma, KTN Michezo.
Na mtukiachana Hassan Juma, sasa tuelekee kwenye taarifa nyingine ambapo Kenya itawakilishwa na wanariadha 26 kwenye mashindano ya dunia ya wanariadha chipukizi ambayo yatafanyika katika jiji la Cali nchini Colombia. Timu hiyo ilichaguliwa baada ya siku 2 za majaribio ya kitaifa katika uwanja wa Nyayo hapa jijini Nairobi.
Shirikisho la riadha nchini limechagua kikosi dhabiti kushiriki makala ya mwaka huu ya mashindano ya wanariadha chipukizi. Bingwa wa bara Afrika wa mashindano ya mita 2000 kuruka viunzi na maji Sandra Felix Chebet alitawala mbio hizo na kupata nafasi ya kushiriki mashindano ya dunia baada ya kutumia muda wa dakika 6 sekunde 16.19. Katika mbio za wavulana za kuruka viunzi na maji, Vincent Kipyegon ambaye pia ni bingwa wa bara Afrika wa mashindano ya chipukizi alitoa ushindi mbele ya Geoffrey Rotich. Willy Tarbei katika upande mwingine alishinda mbio za mita 800 akitumia muda wa kasi wa dakika 1 sekunde 44.51 akifuatwa na Kipyegon Bet.
Rahisi kwa still cross na 51 na race iliwaka tu mpaka mwisho.
Katika mbio za mita 1500, Janet Chemgetich alistahimili upinzani mkali kutoka kwa Joylin Cherotich na akamaliza wa kwanza katika mbio hizo. Timu hiyo ya wanariadha 26 itaingia kambini kwa mazoezi siku ya Jumatatu. Lynn Washira, KTN Michezo.
Sikia hapo mtazamaji, sina ziada bali natamatisha taarifa za KTN leo kwa hivi sasa. Kwa mara nyingine tena basi natakia Waislamu wote Ramadhan Karim wa Shahri Mubarak. Kwaheri.